Hi everyone, how's it going? Happy Friday, the Friday before spring break. We made it, now you get a whole week off. I won't be doing read alouds during that week. I will start again after spring break, just letting you know. But I have a couple of read alouds that I'm going to be posting on my website today that are extra than what we usually do. But first and foremost, and I have a scooter snuggling me down here, so I'm going to be very careful, but here are my socks for today. You're not even going to be able to handle the cuteness. Are you ready? Oh, Scooter's ready. Okay, here we go. Let's see how good of a view you can get. All right, so I have my little monkey, and he's dressed as a rabbit, and he has his Easter basket. So there we go, and then I have polka dots. Fun, sparkly polka dots on my socks today. And then we have a scooter. There's a scooter. Huh. Yeah. He's just snuggling today. It's a good day. All right. Are you ready? More Fablehaven? Bless you. Goodness. We've got some noises coming from this three-legger. Okay. Oh, are you ready? We're on chapter 14, Homecoming. The rising sun bathed the top of Painted Mesa in golden light, the Pueblo ruins casting long shadows beyond the brink of the nearest precipice. A scrawny lizard skittered along the top of a crumbling wall, its progress interrupted by unpredictable pauses. The thirsty ground and arid air had already sapped away the rainfall. A warm breeze and a few fluffy clouds suggested that the storm might have been nothing more than a dream. Oh my goodness. Do you remember what happened? So they made it through all of the traps, and they made it to the end, to the vault, and the artifact wasn't there. Do you remember what the message said? That the artifact had already been taken by the world's greatest adventurer we know was Patton Burgess, and so he took it, and that artifact is in Fablehaven somewhere. Oh my gosh! Plot twist! Okay. Kendra, Dugan, Gavin, and Warren tramped across reddish stone away from the ruins. When they reached the edge of the mesa, Kendra peered down at a bird of prey wheeling in a wide circle, brown wings tilting in the breeze. The air was shockingly clear. The desert panorama expanses of dirt and stone gouged by gorges and overseen by craggy buttes looked so crisp that Kendra felt as though she had put on a pair of much-needed prescription glasses. Getting out of the cave had proven nearly as arduous as getting in. After extensive searching and experimentation, they had concluded that the artifact was not hidden or disguised, it really was gone. Warren had cautioned Kendra not to share her translation of the inscription on the altar with Dugan or Gavin. In the end, they each claimed several treasures from the chamber and departed. Upon returning to Shalize's lair, do you remember who Shalize is? The dragon. Kendra had managed to keep her eyes off the metallic dragon, and Gavin had presented the coppery beast with a selection of the loveliest treasures they had pilfered. Later, Warren successfully tested the air in the cavern with the choke pods. Crossing the cavern was dodgy, but they all made it. Kendra had avoided looking at Neil, who Warren had reported was already mostly liquefied. Ugh. At the chasm, Kendra had fallen, but the swing to the wall had not been far, and Warren had pulled her up. The others traversed the gap without incident. When they reached the platform where they had started, Dugan inserted the key and they spiraled up to the kiva. Uncertain what enemies they might find waiting, venturing out onto the mesa was tense, but with Gavin leading the way, they were relieved to find no trace of the creatures who had attacked them the night before. Now, traipsing along the rim of the mesa, Kendra clung to the rain staff stolen from the coyote man. Jewels rattled in her pockets. Gavin had retained a heavy golden crown set with sapphires, which he now wore on his head. Dugan bore a chalice wrought of crystal and platinum. That's like a fancy goblet. A chalice is a fancy cup. Warren wore several new rings and clung to a sheathed sword with a pearly hilt. About halfway around the perimeter of the mesa, they found a pathway that descended the plateau in a steep series of switchbacks. They encountered no trouble on the way down. As the day grew hotter and the balmy breeze faltered, the mesa remained tranquil. Once they reached the base of the mesa, Kendra was unsurprised when they looked back to see the zigzagging path they had descended was gone. They hiked around the mesa toward the vehicles until Gavin spotted Tammy's corpse lying between a pair of tall, bullet-shaped boulders. While Dugan and Gavin moved in for a closer inspection, Warren escorted Kendra along a route that kept the body out of view. The Jeep and the truck were parked not too far beyond where Gavin had found Tammy. Warren and Kendra waited by the vehicles until Dugan and Gavin showed up carrying a bundled load between them. Warren jogged over to help. Together they carefully placed Tammy's remains in the bed of the truck. "We don't have keys to the Jeep," Dugan said. "Those were lost with Neil." "I'll ride in the back," Gavin offered. "Before we return to the hacienda, I have a proposal," Dugan said. "In case we still have a traitor in our midst, someone who works at the preserve, for example, I say we pretend the mission was a success." Dugan held up the platinum and crystal chalice. "I recommend we secure this item in our strongbox as if it were the artifact, on the chance that the decoy helps flush out an enemy." He wrapped it tightly in his poncho. "Great idea," Warren approved. "Plus, it can't hurt to send the message that the artifact was recovered," Kendra said. "The misinformation might prevent the Society from hunting for it elsewhere." "If they weren't the ones who already snatched it," Gavin murmured. "A possible scenario," Dugan acknowledged, "but until we learn more about the missing artifact, our best hope to mislead the Society is to claim victory." Kendra sat between Dugan and Warren on the ride back to the hacienda. She felt a little guilty about not telling Dugan and Gavin that the artifact was probably not in the hands of the Society of the Evening Star, that it had been relocated to Fablehaven. They had paid a high price to reach the final chamber of the vault, and Kendra loathed leaving them with the feeling that the mission had been a total failure. But if the Sphinx was a traitor, she and Warren could not risk allowing vital information to reach him through Dugan and Gavin. Kendra tried not to think about Tammy lying in the bed of the truck. She felt bad for Gavin riding back there with the corpse. She refused to think of Neil, brave and quiet, whose reward for a heroic rescue was to be slowly devoured by strange cave balloons. Kendra had spoken little all morning and did not deviate from her pattern during the drive. She felt stretched, her eyes itched, danger had kept her on edge all night. Now that the peril had passed, her fatigue became harder to ignore. Rosa, Hal, and Mara came out of the hacienda as the truck pulled to a stop. Hal sauntered forward, glancing in the bed of the truck as the others got out. "Tammy?" Hal asked, his attention on the bundled corpse. Dugan nodded. "No Jeep," Hal remarked. "I take it Neil ran into trouble?" "Choke pods," Dugan reported. Hal nodded, averting his eyes. Biting her knuckles, Rosa choked back sobs. She leaned against Mara, who kept a stoic expression, her dark eyes hard. Witnessing their grief made Kendra teary. "He went inside the vault," Hal said, a statement with an implied question. "We ran into serious trouble on the mesa," Warren explained. "Neil was a real hero. None of us would have made it to the cave without him. Weathering the night outside the vault would have meant certain doom, so he and Kendra entered with us." "I reckon you saw he was a skinwalker," Hal said. "He became a chestnut stallion and ferried us to safety," Gavin said. "Did you find what you were after?" Hal asked. Dugan hefted the chalice, which was still wrapped in his poncho. "We'll leave you in peace as soon as we can schedule a flight." "We'll radio Stu," Hal offered. "He can hop on the internet and book your flights. You must have endured quite a night." He laid a hand on the side of the truck. "Go on inside. I'll take care of the young lady." Kendra followed Warren into the hacienda, avoiding eye contact with Rosa and Mara. What must they think of them? Strangers who came to their preserve, dragged one of their friends into a dangerous mesa to recover some artifact, and returned bearing news of his death without so much as a body to bury. "You okay?" Warren asked. Kendra could not imagine that he actually wanted the truth. She nodded instead. "You did great," Warren said. "That was a nightmare. Get some rest, all right? Let me know if you need anything." "Thanks," Kendra said, entering her room and closing the door. After pulling off her boots and socks, she dove onto her bed, buried her face in the pillow, and cried. Her tears and muffled sobs helped purge the fear and sorrow of the previous night. Soon, exhaustion overcame her, and Kendra sank into a dreamless sleep. Dragonflies. Rosy light glowed through her window when Kendra awoke. She wiped crust from her eyelids and smacked her lips. Her mouth tasted dry and stale. Sitting up, she felt woozy and had a slight headache. Irregular sleep patterns had never agreed with her. Someone had left a glass of water on her nightstand. Kendra sipped from the glass, grateful to wash away the unpleasant taste in her mouth. She padded across the floor, went out into the hall, and walked to the kitchen. Mara looked up. She had been wiping the table. You must be hungry, Mara said in her husky voice. Sort of, Kendra replied. I'm so sorry about Neil. He knew the risks, she said evenly. Would you prefer something light, soup and toast? Don't fuss over me, said Kendra. I'll grab a bite later. Have you seen Warren? He's in the courtyard. Kendra hurried down a corridor, the tiles cool against her bare feet, and stepped out into the courtyard. Although the sun was setting, the pebbles of the gravel pathway remained warm, crunching underfoot and prickling her soles. Several fairies buzzed in the air. Warren stood on a tiled path beside a flowering cactus, hands clasped behind his back. He turned and smiled at Kendra. You woke up. I'll probably be awake all night, she said. Maybe not. I bet you're more fatigued than you realized, he said. We have a flight booked tomorrow at 11 in the morning. Great, she said. He walked toward her. I've been thinking. Without divulging all we know, I want to warn Dugan about the Sphinx. Just tell him enough to get him paying attention. Okay, she said. We don't want to notify the Sphinx that we're on to him, but I think we can also err by keeping our suspicions too private. I was waiting for you. I want you there to corroborate the story. Don't tell him more than I do. Does that sound foolish? Kendra thought about it for a moment. Telling anyone is a risk, but I think we need somebody like Dugan keeping an eye on him, she said. I agree, said Warren. As a lieutenant of the Knights of the Dawn, Dugan is very well connected. I can think of no other high-ranking knight who strikes me as more trustworthy. He led her back inside the house. They walked to a closed door and knocked. Come in, Dugan invited. They entered a tidy bedroom, not unlike Kendra's. Dugan sat at a desk writing in a notebook. We need to talk, Warren said. Sure, Dugan gestured at his bed. He was sitting on the only chair. Kendra and Warren sat down on the mattress. These are uncertain times, Warren began. I need to run something by you. Kendra is here to verify my words. You recall when I grilled you about the identity of the captain? Right, Dugan said, his tone hinting not to ask again. We ended up discussing the Sphinx. Whatever his relation to the Knights of the Dawn, at the very least, he has long been one of our most trusted collaborators. As a lieutenant, you're close to the captain, so there is something I want you to know. You're aware that Fablehaven is one of the 5 secret preserves. Yes, said Dugan. Are you aware that the Sphinx removed the artifact hidden at Fablehaven earlier this summer? Dugan stared at him silently, lips slightly puckered. He shook his head almost imperceptibly. Then I doubt you heard he also took with him a prisoner who had been confined in the most secure cell on the property, a detainee who had been there ever since the preserve was founded, an anonymous captive with an infamous reputation. Ooh, do you remember the last time we read? We know who that prisoner is now. Even though we've never met him in the story, we know who the prisoner was. Do you remember? His name was Navarog, and he is like the prince of dragons. So he's a dragon leader. And remember, dragons can take the form of humans. So that's why he looked like a human as he walked out, but he was really like, yeah, the prince of dragons. Okay. Dugan cleared his throat. I was unaware, he said. There were some shifty circumstances surrounding the whole event, Warren said. Nothing to prove the Sphinx is a traitor, but given the high stakes, together with the nature of our current mission, I want to be sure the Sphinx is not the only person aware that the Fablehaven artifact was removed, if you take my meaning. Dugan nodded. You saw the artifact? He asked Kendra. I saw it in use, she said. I recharged it myself. The Sphinx came to Fablehaven and took it personally. If what you told us before was true, and the Sphinx is not leading the Knights, you'll want to make sure the captain knows about this, Warren said. If you misled us, and the Sphinx is the captain, make sure at least one of the other lieutenants knows the details we're sharing. No one person should have control over multiple artifacts. I understand the implications, Dugan said, voice steady. Implications are all we have, Warren said. This is merely precautionary. We have no desire to wrongly accuse an innocent ally. Still, in case the Sphinx really is working for the other side, please don't let our concerns get back to him. If he is a traitor, he has covered the secret well, and will stop at nothing to keep it from leaking. One way to protect yourselves against him would be to accuse him openly, Dugan said. Which we hesitate to do, Warren began. Because if he is on our side, we desperately need him, Dugan finished. Spreading false accusations about his disloyalty would provoke widespread distrust and dissension. And if, as our true ally, he is successfully concealing the artifacts, hopefully taking measures so no one person knows where multiple items are housed, we don't want to frustrate his efforts. Dugan, we hope our suspicion is wrong, but I can't ignore the smallest chance we may be right. The results could be devastating. Catastrophic, Dugan agreed. Now I understand why you were asking about the captain. I'll keep a lid on this, and I'll keep an eye open. That's all we ask, Warren said. I felt we could rely on you. Sorry to trouble you with this. Don't apologize, Dugan said. This is how the Knights police themselves. Nobody is above suspicion. Sharing your concerns with me was the correct choice. Anything else? He studied both Warren and Kendra. Not that I can think of, Kendra said. For the record, Warren mentioned, we know 4 of the 5 hidden preserves. This one, Fablehaven, Brazil, and Australia. We can't come up with the 5th. Honestly, neither can we, Dugan said soberly, which is why we're aggressively soliciting knowledge about the hidden preserves. For so long, our policy was to leave those mysteries alone. Although the secret preserves were seldom discussed openly, most of us assumed that if we pooled our knowledge, all 5 would be known to the Knights collectively. Word is that you have been conducting some private research on the matter. Standing up, Warren chuckled softly, apparently not as private as I supposed. The 4 preserves I named are all I've come up with, and I knew about them before I really started digging. I'll delve into this matter of the Sphinx and I'll alert you of any significant findings, Dugan said. Let me know if you uncover any new information. Count on it, Warren said, leading Kendra out of the room. We'll keep going since we're going to have a long break. Dragonflies. Kendra awoke the following morning just after dawn. Beside her on the bed lay a Louis L'Amour hardcover borrowed from a bookshelf in the living room. She had ended up needing the companionship of the novel much less than she had expected. Before midnight, when she was only a third of the way through the Western story, her eyes had grown weary and she had rested her head on her pillow. That was the last thing she remembered. Kendra placed the novel on her nightstand and switched off her reading light. She felt too perfectly rested to attempt any further sleep, so she put on her clothes. Would the others be up yet? The hallway outside her room was quiet. She walked to the kitchen and found nobody. She had never been the first to awaken at the hacienda and could not imagine that everyone had slept past dawn. She opened the front door and found Gavin walking across the driveway. "Good morning," Kendra called. "If you say so," he replied. "What happened?" "Javier is gone, along with the strong box," he said. "What?" "Check out the Jeep." Kendra looked beyond Gavin at the Jeep parked in the driveway. Hal and Mara had used spare keys to retrieve the vehicle the previous evening. All 4 tires were flat. "He slashed the tires?" "And they couldn't find the pickup," Gavin said. "They're all out searching for clues on motorcycles and horseback." "So Javier was a spy?" Looks that way. At least the artifact he took was a decoy. Still, Dugan acted really worried. Even though Javier had a questionable past back when he was selling his services to the highest bidder, he had proven himself extremely reliable in recent years. Dugan said if Javier was secretly working for the society, anyone could be. Well, what now? Kendra wondered. "We'll still leave as planned. I was coming to grab some breakfast." "Why didn't anyone wake me up?" Kendra asked. "Nobody specifically woke me up either," Gavin said. "They wanted to let us rest after yesterday. The revving motorcycles got me out of bed. My window looks out on the front. Are you hungry?" He walked into the hacienda and strode to the kitchen, taking milk from the fridge and cereal from the pantry. "I'll have a bowl," Kendra said. "Want some orange juice? Toast?" "Please," he said. While Kendra poured the juice and put bread into the toaster, Gavin set the table, placing the milk between the bowls of cereal and locating boysenberry jam. Kendra buttered the toast and set it on the table, splashed milk onto her cereal, and started eating. They were rinsing their bowls in the sink when Dugan entered the hacienda with swift strides. Warren followed at his heels. "Any luck?" Gavin asked. "We found the truck abandoned near the entrance to the preserve," Dugan reported bitterly. "He mutilated the tires. He must have had an accomplice waiting on the far side of the fence." "Will we still make it to the airport?" Kendra asked. Hal has spare tires. Dugan poured himself a glass of water. We should still get away on schedule. He took a long drink. After all that's happened, it almost seems appropriate that we should end our stay here on another sour note. I won't be surprised if the Knights of the Dawn are never permitted on the premises again. We seem to be the opposite of jackalope feet, Warren agreed. On the bright side, at least we're not about to confess to our evil employer that we ruined our legs and blew our cover in order to steal a phony artifact. I think old Javier might end up having the worst day out of all of us. He clapped his hands together and rubbed them. Time for some culinary therapy. What's for breakfast, he said. Let's see. Ooh, there's way too much to finish that chapter, so we will stop for there. That's a good stopping place, because then we are heading back to Fablehaven to join our two stories back together again. And if you remember what Seth found out, he he went and visited Growlithe, one of the powerful demons at Fablehaven, and Growlithe basically told him who was in the quiet box that left the preserve and how they started the plague. Do you remember how the plague was started? I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? I'm just kidding. So, the plague was started by Navarog, the dragon prince of evil and devastation, I don't know, found the nail from the Revenant and gave it to Kurosok, another demon on Fablehaven, who used the power in the nail to work through someone else at Fablehaven to start the plague. So we will find out more about that after spring break. Okay? All right. Have a great spring break. Email me if you do anything super exciting. I want to hear all your adventures. Or you can go on Flipgrid. I've sent out something about that a couple of times to your parents, so we can always talk and everything like that. So yeah, miss you guys. Have fun, and we'll get back together after spring break, okay? Bye.